Blow up your TV, throw away your paper, go to the country, build you a home, plant a little garden, eat a lot of peaches, try and find Jesus on your own.
Victim to me. Everything we are and used to be is buried and gone. Now it's my turn to speak.
The views expressed on the following broadcasts do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT, Take 12 Radio, or our affiliates. The opinions on this show should not be considered as medical, psychological, or professional advice and are those of the host, co-host, and guest. Take 12 Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Welcome to Entitled to Overcome, exploring solutions for life today. A presentation of Take 12 Recovery Radio. And now, here are your co-hosts, Dave Fleming and the Monty Man.
Sing it, Dave.
Cry victim to me.
There's Dave Fleming. If you're watching on YouTube, wave, Dave. It's the Dave wave.
It's the vid. Vid for victory.
Yeah, on video. Wow. Welcome to Entitled to Overcome, Solutions for Life.
You know, there's a great
Today.
line in there that people caught it. They can go back and replay it. It says, it's time to expose and release what's been killing me. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Solutions for...
Solutions for is preventiveness that we can do to prevent relapse, right?
Right.
Part 2. So last month on this show, we did part 1, relapse prevention, and we barely scratched the surface. And so today we're going to wrap it up with part 2, and you've got some good stuff for us to talk about on how to cut it off at the pass, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we don't fall back into relapse. So a few shows ago on the other shows that we did, I talked about the song Blow Up Your TV. Because we talked about just unplug from all this crazy stuff on the media.
Right.
And if you're sitting in front of the boob tube soaking it up all day, no wonder you're depressed, right?
Watching fear porn.
Right, fear porn, exactly. So that song was written by John Prine. And that was him actually singing it.
Yeah.
There's a couple of versions of it. I like the John Denver version too, but that was John Prine's version. So just go to YouTube and type in Blow Up Your TV, John Prine. It's really great. And listen to the whole thing. I can't play the whole thing for copyright reasons, obviously.
Right.
But it's great stuff. So sometimes maybe that's not a bad idea. Maybe that could be a relapse prevention tool. Stop watching fear porn.
Right.
Right?
You gotta unplug, and we'll talk a little bit about that how that plays into relapse prevention.
So I think it's time, Dave. What time is it?
What time is it, Monty?
Oh, it's time for Dave and Monty.
That's right.
Icebreaker.
Broom! I need a broom.
Yes, what a mess. Okie dokie. All right, we got 5 little ditties here. The victim's jewelry was missing. The electronics were gone. And a window was smashed. No wonder she was hysterical when an officer of the Calgary police arrived. Then her French-speaking father called. Speaking in French, she explained that it was all a scam, Dave, in order to get the insurance money. What she didn't suspect was that Officer Meharu spoke 6 languages, including French.
Bonjour les amis, bienvenue dans ce nouvel épisode de...
Nice. It's always interesting when people all of a sudden, you start speaking their language and they kind of look at you like, oh, crap.
Yeah, right. How much
what
have
is
you
it?
been hearing?
NCI, was it NCIS?
This guy,
Los Angeles, or what's his name? Ice-T? No, not Ice-T. What's the other guy's name?
the other guy. I know you're talking
Anyway,
about. Yeah.
he does this all the time. Like, people will start speaking in, Vietnamese or
Right.
whatever, and
Right.
he just sits there and looks at him, and then he responds in that language, and they're just like, "Oh crap!
Oh no,
They understood what I said."
Well, here's story number 2 on the icebreaker. When an attempted robbery at a Lowe's home improvement store. I always say Lowe's. It's Lowe's, right?
Yeah.
Lowe's. L-O-W-E.
There's no L at the
There's
end.
no L in there. I don't know why I say that. Well, anyway, an attempted robbery at the home improvement store went awry. Milton J. Hodges fled across the street, jumped a fence, right into the Cypress Grove nudist resort and spa. As the Orlando Sentinel, lots of things go on in Florida.
They're just off the chain.
As they pointed this out, as the only guy wearing clothing, well, it was easy to point him out. You know what I mean? Yeah, that may be what he said. It's a good thing he wasn't jumping the fence with no clothes on.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, he didn't get lucky and his clothes didn't catch on the fence.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So then he would have
Yeah.
blended in.
Okay, number 3. I love this. Don't you hate it, Dave, when you suffer a heart attack and think you're going to die, so you confess to a 17-year-old murder,
Yikes.
only to find out that you're not going to die and then get sentenced to life in prison as a result?
Well, that sucks.
Yes, it does. James Washington of Nashville, well, that's what happened to James. Bummer.
He didn't put that on his 4th step. Huh?
Right. Zippity dude. All right, number 4, around in the corner here. An Iowa City man had his driver's license stolen. Then who showed up at the bar where he worked as a bouncer but the thief brandishing the bouncer's very own driver's license? There you go. Right? Some call it karma. Some call it what goes around comes around. Some call it you reap what you sow. But what happened to this guy was simply he got bounced out of there, Dave. Yes, indeed.
Wow.
Oh, these people are crazy. It's amazing stuff. All right, here's the last one. Dave. Evidently,
Come on.
Oh, boy. Evidently, there's nowhere to hide in Kansas City when you have tummy trouble. A 34-year-old jewelry thief was caught outside a jewelry store due to indigestion. After Kansas City police searched the premises for their suspect, they were about to give up on the search when some interesting sounds began to protrude from underneath a car parked outside the establishment. As the strange sounds got louder and more frequent, it wasn't too difficult for the officers to locate the suspect due to his intense flatulation. Yes. And later, the thief admitted that he had been suffering from gas pains all day.
Some people's kids.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Did that break the ice enough for you?
Yeah, I think that's...
It's unbelievable. All right. That does it for our icebreaker. And when we come back, the topic, relapse prevention, part 2, some solutions for you to consider. Don't go away. Hey there, it's the Monty Man. Did you know that Take 12 Recovery Radio and KHLT Recovery Broadcasting are listener supported? What that means is we don't receive any financial assistance from advertising products or services that have nothing to do with health or recovery, but are supported by you, our listeners. Any other promotions we commit to are purely our way of sponsoring other endeavors we feel are beneficial to the recovery community. Well, one thing we have learned all too well in our second decade of broadcasting is that we receive not because we ask not. Therefore, 3 times a year, we come to you, our listeners, for help. Because we are listener-supported, we depend on your donations to keep us on the air. Our listening audience has helped us to do just that. And once again, we are asking for your support. If you feel that Take 12 Recovery Radio is a valuable part of breaking the stigma of addiction and a resource of recovery from the world's #1 health crisis, we ask that you consider becoming a Take 12 partner. To donate any amount or to sign up for a reoccurring monthly donation, simply visit our website at take12radio.com and scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on the donate button. All proceeds go directly to pay for our expenses to continue to bring you the best in recovery talk and positive music. Won't you consider partnership today? Thank you, and God bless.
Hi, this is Colin Meyer, the producer of the Welcome to the Table podcast, and you are listening to the recovery talk and positive music of Take 12 Recovery Radio.
Yes, indeed. Many people have the mist from the smoke of a distant fire as of late around here. That was 1977, the Sanford Townsend Band with their song Smoke of a Distant Fire. I just had to play that because just in the last couple days, right, we've seen some blue skies.
Right.
You know?
We had, a day and a half of,
rain.
Constant rain. Yeah.
They cleared it up, which caused other problems. But not as bad as they thought they would cause. But man, it's been rough.
I'll take rain over fire.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's been it's been a mess. It's been a mess. And the Willamette Valley there for a while had the worst air quality index in the world because of the way the valley sits and all of it was trapped in there. You know. So our prayers and our thoughts go out to all the folks that lost their homes and their businesses and were displaced and now slowly rebuilding and moving back in. I mean, it's traumatic stuff. Yeah. And when things like this happen, of course, like the whole COVID thing, and it really matters not what side of the fence you believe, all that stuff. The fact is that it's very stressful. It's very traumatic. And we know, we've watched, Dave, right? The relapse rates and the abuse rates have increased.
They've skyrocketed since the quarantine started.
Right. Yeah, it's been crazy. So we're going to be talking about some of the solutions and some of the preventative things you can do to head this whole relapse thing off at the pass. My microphone's doing weird things, so I'll fix that. There we go. Okay. So Dave, launch us forth on this. Well, before we do, let me just review really quickly. Last time, last month, on the third Monday of the month, we launched forth on Relapse Prevention Part 1. We talked about signs of emotional relapse, such as anxiety, intolerance, anger, defensiveness, all those things. We talked about signs of mental relapse, hanging out with using friends, fantasizing about using, and a whole list of those kind of things as well. Emotional relapse, mental relapse, and physical relapse. So we talked a lot about the problems, but now we want to kind of focus in on the solutions. So Dave, kind of launch us forth on this, brother.
Let's see, where should we start? I'm just going to share a little bit of my experience because, I believe that where I ended up beginning my process of finally actually getting into recovery
Yeah.
will work for anybody. They just have to apply themselves. And so, we've talked about this before. Like, the only thing you got to change is everything. And
Sure.
sometimes that sounds ridiculous and sounds overwhelming. And what is that? I don't understand. Like, that's ridiculous. First time I heard that term, I thought the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Second time I heard it, I'm sitting in jail after my last DUI, and I had to break that down and what that looks like, because I knew at that point I needed to start listening to the people that were in recovery, or the things that I actually heard in treatment meetings that I never applied, because I always thought I'm just going to do it my way because I'm smarter.
Right. Sure.
Right?
Sure. Yeah.
That doesn't work for me. I can make this work my way. And so I got to that point where I had to decide that I'm going to do it the way that it's laid out, and do it to the best of my ability for an entire year. And if it doesn't work out, I can always go back to doing what I was doing. That's kind of where I started off.
Hey, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
We're going to pause just for a second. Let's just bear with me just for a second. I want to check something out here on our sound. Hold on, YouTubers, hold on a minute. I want to check something. Hey, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
We're going to pause. Okay. No, we're good. All right. Thanks for bearing with me there. I thought I saw something on the software that wasn't working, and it's working fine. So my mistake.
Better safe than sorry.
Thank you.
In construction, we say measure twice, cut once.
Yes.
You always got to verify that it's the correct things are working.
And it
correctly.
Everything said it was good, but then it just, you get used to looking at the meter and going, those little itty bitty lines don't look quite right, but they're fine. So Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So start at the beginning. So that process was, I can't change who I am. Only God can do that, or a higher power, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even focus on that portion of it. I focused on, what can I do? What can I change? And so if I look at doing the opposite of what I've been doing that I feel has caused a problem, right? Because in the beginning, I'm not going to know everything. I'm just going to know where I have failed in the past.
Yeah, you're not going to get it just because you walked in the doors, right?
So, obviously the first thing, for me anyway, my head was, I had this spiritual intervention while I was in detox.
Mm-hmm.
God came in and removed my addiction and the obsession, and they talk about, pulling the veil or the scales off the eyes, and it was like everything was super clear. And so it's like, okay, so first of all, what do I do when I end up in the same situation?
Mm-hmm.
Hey God, or whatever, higher power out there, help me get out of this one, and I'll never do it again. Right?
Sure.
That's usually
the foxhole prayer. Yeah.
Right. And so I had to look at that. What does that look like? So now I'm gonna pray for the people that have put up with my BS, stuck by me, and ask for guidance and the clarity to start to understand what I need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And so asking for help was the next one, because I never told anybody what was going on in my life, because if nobody knows, right, except for what you tell them, so I can come up with whatever.
Sure. If nobody knows, then it doesn't exist.
Well, yeah,
it does. But,
so you have a persona or whatever, I guess, back in the day that you wanted to project, and a lot of times for me anyway, I worked in clubs and security, and on the dark side,
Yeah, so you were around it
working
all
with
the time.
criminals, and so you had to put on a persona or, to basically protect yourself.
Sure.
And so it was always that everything's at arm's length, even with people that friends and girlfriends or whatever. It was like you only tell so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't tell everybody everything because then you're gonna be vulnerable and people are gonna use it against you.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what I felt. And the other thing after, so I started asking for help, telling people what was going on. I called somehow I was able to call my boss while I was in jail, and he told him what was going on. He said, yeah, we kind of figured something like that happened. Right. So, we talk about in recovery how the addict is usually the last one to figure it out.
Sure. That
they have a problem. And he's like, well, we were going to send somebody out looking for you. And I was like, wow. Well, I'm thinking to myself, why would you do that? You don't even know me. Right?
Right.
Because here again, there's that arm's length. Don't let everybody know anything about you because they can't use it against you. And he's like, yeah, you can come back to your job when you're done, when you get things sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow. So then I called my pastor, Pastor Tom. I didn't, was one of these guys that helped us out when we moved to Minnesota, and always kept him, in my back pocket as a resource when we needed help with something. Like I can always go and get diapers or get a gas card so I can go to work or whatever, because I spent all my money on drugs at that time. So he comes down. I told him what's going on, and he says, "What's it going to take to get you out of here?" And I said $2,500. He goes, "Okay, I'll be back tomorrow."
Wow.
I was like, "What?" Again, I was like, "Why would you do that? You don't." And I never asked for help, because I learned early on, when I asked for help, I got knocked down and told, suck it up, you pay the consequences. And
right. You made your choices.
You did the deal. So you deal with the consequences.
Lay in the bed you made. You bet.
And I think they learned that when I was very young. I got in trouble, and my mom told them to keep me in jail. I was probably 14, 13 or 14. And so that was like, okay, so when I need help, I know that I better not ask.
Sure.
So I just got better at being a criminal. That's all, which was, looking back, just insane. But, so, the next day, he didn't show up actually. And so I was like, oh, here we go. Another person let me down. And I just heard this, God talking to me and saying in my spirit, saying, you know what, dude, you're in a safe space right now. So maybe he's got something else or somebody else to help that needs more than you do right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay. Again, I was like doing my foxhole prayer, or not my foxhole prayer, but my prayer that I've done for a while. It's like, if there is a God and you want to work in my life, give me a sign.
Yeah.
And so, we're sitting there watching this movie, and I'm just trying to lay some groundwork here. We're watching this movie, Creation versus Evolution, which is an odd thing to be showing in a jail. They don't ever show anything that has anything to do with any kind of religion.
Right.
And they're like throwing scripture in there, and they're basically showing how the Bible and archaeology kind of prove each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of this video, all of a sudden it says, Jesus said, if you can believe, all things are possible. And I about fell off my chair, because that's the scripture I heard when I came out of my blackout before I got my DUI. That was what I heard, and I was like, okay, that's just kind of odd. And that's the scripture that it was like, I think it's Mark 9:23 or something like that. And so that's, God's kind of given me that scripture when I need a sign or need a word of encouragement along the way. It's happened quite a number of times, even after I've moved here to Oregon. So anyway, so I get, so he ends up coming back the next day and bails me out. And basically somebody in the church got in a car accident. And so he was at the hospital with them. So that was like all this confirmation of, you know, people actually helping me when I asked for help.
Right.
And, you know, if I just, you know, be patient and do what I need to do what I'm supposed to do, things work out. And so when I got out, you know, I ended up, you know, going to meetings, and my thing was I'm going to go to meetings every day for, you know, the first thing what I used to hear was go to 90 meetings in 90 days. And I said to myself, I'm just going to go to meetings every day. I didn't want to put like a
time
cap on
thing
it.
on
it's
it.
like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to go, and because I already made that, you know, I made that deal with God. Like, you know, I'll do this for a year to the best of my ability.
Right.
And so that was part of the deal. Is I went and, so I had to, you know, I went to all kinds of different meetings. You want NA, AA, DRA, which is dual recovery, and it covers like any mental health.
And
that's anything from like ADHD to schizophrenia and kind of everything in between.
So you just want to make sure you were checking everything out you could.
Well, I just, you know, I got to go to a meeting every day, and so there's
why not, right?
Yeah, and there's not so I, you know, checked out different types of meetings, speaker meetings, step meetings, big book call-up meetings. I went to out of the area to meetings so that I kind of got a different experience.
Okay, so I'm writing this down. So number one, solution, right?
Right.
Check out multiple meetings. Is that a good idea?
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, just start going to meetings and start, you know, listening.
There's nothing wrong with shopping around either, right?
Well, I think you have to do that. And that's where going to a meeting every day, going to different ones, helps with that process.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say, you know, go to a meeting and then do it for a couple months, because you're not going to really find out if it's a good fit for you.
Exactly.
After 1 week.
You can't
or
make a
after
good call on
2
that.
weeks or
right.
whatever.
Right.
Because things like that happened to me while I was in early recovery. Like, you know, I would sit there and go, okay, is there something that I need to learn from this if it wasn't a good situation, or if it was a little uncomfortable? I had to like look at it like, is this something that I need to change in me, or is this just not a good fit? And so there's meetings that I didn't go, you know, I went to for a couple months, and then I stopped going because it wasn't a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, while I was doing that, I was also doing service work. So I was, you know, setting chairs up, making coffee.
So number two, service work, getting plugged in, not just being a spectator.
Right. It's a huge thing, because for me, I looked at it this way. In my addiction, how much time did I spend on my addiction? And, you know, people say, oh, I only used, you know, on the weekends or whatever. And it's like, no, it's, for me, I consider and rationalize and justify, but it's 24/7.
Yeah.
Because I'm either thinking about it, I'm looking for it, I'm waiting for it, right? I'm using it,
right? And
then I'm getting over the effects,
right?
And then starting the whole process over again.
Good point. Really good point. Yeah.
And so it's like, how do if I change everything, so then I need to change the time I spend, you know, on my recovery.
Right.
Right. And so I thought that it's a very reasonable thing to expect that to switch out going to a meeting every day. What's that? An hour, maybe 2 hours?
Mm-hmm.
In exchange for what I was doing. So you got meetings, and then you got service work, because I also had to learn along the way that, you know, in order for me to repair damage or, you know, make amends, there are things that I need to do to, you know, there's oftentimes I can't make amends to people, places, or things because either they don't exist or they've died, or you know what I'm saying. And so how do I fix that? How do I how do I process that in my making amends? Because sometimes that'll keep you stuck. And so doing service work was that for me. It's like thinking about it, going, okay, so the way that I can make amends is to be of service to others, right?
Right.
And to not use again.
Yeah. So some would call that the living amends portion of the program. And so I think one of the things my sponsor taught me a long time ago was, there, like you said, there are going to be times when it's inappropriate. There are going to be times when people need to process, and you shouldn't be jumping into that yet. You certainly shouldn't be doing that when you first get into recovery. That's why it's step 9, not step 1. Right. You know, but it is a direct amends when possible. But there's going to be times when it's not. People have passed on.
Right.
You can't get back in touch with people. They're gone, whatever it is. Or you don't ever want to make an amends at the cost of the other person. Right. So Bruce used to tell me, as long as you stay willing to make that amends, if the opportunity arises and it becomes appropriate,
right.
And then in between that time, you do exactly what you were doing. You actually live it and walk it out.
And there's I mean, I got tested the first week I got out of treatment, and you know what that looks like is I'm going to the grocery store, right? And I'm buying food, and they give me too much change back. And so what do? Do I put it in my pocket and walk away, or do I say something? Well, and in that, when you're in the moment, you know, all this stuff for me played through my head like instantaneously. It's like you almost like in slow motion. It's like, you know, what's the next right thing to do? Because that was, you know, your only thing changes everything, and then what's the next right thing to do, right? Whatever that is, or do the next right thing, whatever that is. And so, you know, I say, hey, you know, you gave me too much change back.
Right.
Then I think it was, you know, it might have been this all happened in a week, you know, at the same grocery store. You know, I go out to my truck, and there's a shopping cart next to my truck.
Right.
And in, you know, the seat part, there's a 4-pack of wine coolers.
Ah.
Right?
Hello, Dave.
Right. And I'm like, seriously? This is like not happening.
Jesus gave me wine coolers.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Turn some rainwater into wine. And so, you know, I brought it back into the store to customer service, and I said, hey, you know, somebody left this, and they're looking at me like I'm freaking
like,
I'm
have you
insane.
lost your mind?
Like,
yeah.
And then it was something stupid like a can of chili or something fell through, and it was at the bottom of the cart, and neither one of us, you know, nobody caught it.
Yeah.
And so I went back in and you know, paid for it. And again, I got looks. And I've had that happen, you know, multiple times. You know, before we moved out here, I had to do some work at the house we were living in, and I bought this sander and a bunch of stuff, and the price, it didn't seem right. And the whole way out to my truck, I'm thinking something's not right here. This, you know, I'm running through like all the stuff I bought. I'm like, there's no way that this was only, you know, $40, right? The sander, I think, was like $50. So I'm like, and I'm looking at the receipt, and I'm like, she didn't charge me for the sander. So, you know, my brain's going, you know, should I just go? You know, this is years into my recovery. Sure. And I thought, no, I gotta, you know, you gotta do the next right thing. And so I go into customer service, and I said, hey, the girl I knew, she was new, so she was in training, and I paid. The lady from customer service called somebody, her coworker over. She goes, "Hey, check this out." Explains to her what the situation was, and they both kind of look at me like, "What is wrong with you?" Got that kind of look, like, "What? I mean, you got a free sander." Like, I'm just like, "No, this is the right thing to do." And so, because in my old life, if I would have got some free money or got some free stuff, I'd just say, "Thanks, Lord."
Wouldn't have thought twice about it. Yeah.
Right. Or,
yeah.
God, I'm whatever. So that stuff comes up in your early recovery, and that's those things that you got to do the next right thing, whatever that is.
So let's okay. So I need to be. I'm just going to do a live moment break here for a minute.
Making a list.
Yeah,
checking it twice.
But we need to. I need to stop because I need to make a plea here.
Okay.
And then we're going to come back. But so listeners, just bear with me for a minute while we put this on pause. Listen, you heard me talk about earlier in the show. You heard a pre-recorded message about donating to our program. All right, and I need to let you know this, listeners. We are past August. August is our big everything becomes due date. We have other due dates for bills for the radio program, but August is the big one. And we have a couple of our major sponsors are MIA. I don't know what happened to them. And so we are falling short of our expenses. We are past due on some things, and because of some grace given by some of our service providers, we're okay. But we are in need of your help. If you would prayerfully consider donating to Take 12 Recovery Radio, and nobody gets a paycheck here. This is all volunteer. The money that we raise goes to keeping us on the air and for the maintenance of our equipment and so forth. If you would consider that, I would really, really appreciate it. If you decide that is something that you would like to do, you can actually sign up for a reoccurring payment, or you can give a one-time gift. No amount's too small. You simply visit us at take12radio.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, and on the left-hand side, there's a donate button. Click on it, and it'll tell you how you can do that. Okay, my plea is done.
Well, I think that's important, and we're still in September, and September is National Recovery Month.
It is National Recovery Month, yes.
It's one of those things that if we're giving back, if what we're doing here is helping you, just if you like to donate, kind of when you go to a meeting, right? You donate $1 or whatever.
Sure.
Like Monty said, there's no amount too small.
And people think, well, I mean, I can only give $5, or I can give $3 or whatever. That's okay.
Right.
That's okay. It's the widow's mite, right? It's a whole story about the lady who gave a penny versus and that's all she had versus the guy that gave hundreds and he had tons anyway. Who gave most? The lady that gave the penny.
Right, and that's those are when you talk about those things, it reminds me of times where we were struggling when I was in recovery. It's like, what am I going to do? I need to come up with like $200 to pay this bill or whatever, because
right,
we haven't paid it for 2 months because it's times we ain't no money coming in.
Yeah.
And I've had times where, you hear about these stories about people getting money in the mail they weren't expecting. That's happened to me a couple of times.
Sure.
And it was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. And so I look at that as that's part of like getting back what I put in, right?
Yeah.
So service work, helping other people, however you want to look at God, the universe, whatever, looks out for us. As long as I believe that we're doing the next right thing, right?
Yeah,
we're staying true to the process.
Right. Yeah. Yep. So let's review really quick so far. So I've got 5 things so far that are tools to prevent relapse. Number 1, check out multiple meetings when you first get going. Check them out. Shop around. You got to find a home group. It's okay to do some shop. Number 2, service work. not just being a spectator, but being plugged in some form of service, giving back. Number 3, exchange your drug time for recovery time. Right? So, I mean, if you put half the effort in to your recovery as you did your drug seeking, you're going to experience a positive change.
Right.
Number 4, well, of course, work the steps. We were talking about the amend step, so actually apply and implement them. And then number 5 was what you were talking about, is practice integrity. You're talking about, for the first time, all of a sudden, that thing that shows up in the shopping cart of that extra change, you're thinking differently. Dr. Rob Kelly talked about neuroplasticity. It changes our DNA and our brain.
We have that psychic change, as they say.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't know about if there's anybody else out there that has gone through this too. It's like, sometimes people confuse cockiness, or sometimes even what looks like pride, or like I take pride in my work. They kind of confuse that with being prideful, right? And confidence, right? There's a lot. Sometimes it's hard to,
it can be blurred,
determine, right?
A little bit, yeah.
And so I used to think, I used to do these things partially, even when I was not in recovery,
right?
And so, it's like the reality is like I have to actually follow through with that, like the integrity. I take pride in like doing what I say. Well, am I really doing what I'm saying I'm doing? Before, like, I don't show up, right?
Yeah,
if I don't show up, I don't have to do anything.
Right.
Right. Nobody expects anything from me because I don't offer any help, or I don't show up. I'm just doing stuff for me, or if I need something, then I'm gonna, I may say, hey, if I can, get some free work out of somebody, I'd be like, hey, can you help me out? So I had to change all that. Being in recovery, actually, the integrity, right?
Yeah.
I have to actually follow through with that.
Can I continue on this integrity thing for a minute?
Yep.
I know this is going to sound, some of you listening are going to go, well, yeah, that's not a big deal. I'm not going to pay attention to that. So one of the things that I learned, I think I spoke about this on a previous show, was the whole idea of not taking outside food into the movie theater. For me, that was an integrity issue, and because the sign says no outside food or drink. Okay, do they overcharge? Sure they do. Do you want to pay those fees? No, you don't. But and it's not illegal, but it's their policy.
Well, I didn't see the sign.
I didn't see the sign, and yet you're wearing that oversized coat with the large pockets.
Or your wife's emptied out her purse before,
Right. So we think sometimes that those things don't matter, but you know what they do, because they pick away at your own integrity level. And that's the kind of stuff that picks away at your quality of recovery.
Right.
And when you practice on it, because we're talking about being honest, open-minded, and willing, right?
Right. That's
when you practice honesty and integrity, right? You strengthen that wall that you put between you and the dope man. You strengthen your recovery. You strengthen the quality of it.
It's like you're in early recovery. It's like, well, how do I do this? Right.
Yeah.
Well, you just answered your own question. Like, how? Right? Honesty,
open-mindedness,
and willingness.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so then I have to break that down into each thing and do those things.
And apply those principles.
And that's what I'm talking about early on. That first week, I get challenged 3 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you really gonna do what you say you're gonna do?
Yeah.
Do you really have integrity? And so I get, that whole thing. A big part that we haven't talked about yet, that's probably just as important as going to meetings, is finding a sponsor.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother show, I think, is like looking for a sponsor and what do you
look for, and yeah. But you're right. There's that accountability piece.
Right.
Somebody that's been where you've been, is living in victory over this thing, and knows how to apply and implement the principles in your particular program.
Right. It's looking at, like, I guess the easiest way to do this is like you find somebody that has a life that you would like to have not exactly, right? You don't want to take their life, but
Mm-hmm.
you want a life similar to what they're doing. So you're going to go, it's like anything, you know, in business or, you know, anything, playing music, sports, you're going to go and you're going to learn from somebody that's actually done it.
You would think.
Yeah. That's kind of the idea. And oftentimes, you know, sometimes it doesn't work out with the first one. I think I had, you know, 3 sponsors in the first year, and it was only because one guy moved to New York,
Mm-hmm.
and then and that's the guy I had before I even left treatment.
Right.
And then I had another person that was kind of a conflict of interest, and then you know the guy that I had for a number of years that I still stay in contact with. He's in Minnesota. So anyway, the sponsorship is a big thing because you need someone to process. You know, if you're doing step work, I totally believe that you need to do step work. Get yourself a workbook and find something that has questions in it, and then answer the questions, and then process it with your sponsor.
Yeah, just going to a book study and reading a paragraph and passing the book on to the next guy, that is not step work.
Yeah, I mean, you that may be a part of your step work. And,
that's good.
You know,
healthy,
you can take that and build upon whatever
Sure.
you learned or you talked about in group, in your whatever, you know, step work you were doing. And it's also good to go into the first step meeting if you're in a group that does that. You know, they break up into steps,
right?
And share what you've done up to that point.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the sponsor, because that's, I mean, even, you know, if I think I can figure this out on my own, because I you know, I've got my, you know, 2 or 3 bookshelves full of self-help books.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I got to say this because I've got friends that work for Hazelden. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're great folks. You know, some of the best books out there by Dr. Alan Berger are published by the Hazelden Publishing Company, okay? So I'm going to say this tongue-in-cheek. But Hazelden is the largest publisher of self-help books for people whose problem was self-help. They tried to do it on their own with themselves only. And I think that's what you're speaking of, is having somebody else in your life that has permission to call you on your stuff, who's been where you've been, who has a compassionate heart, but sometimes needs to be firm, right?
Well, you know, and I have to step up to Hazelden's defense because
I'm just
actually
around.
I know. Yeah. I actually worked in the publishing company.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I was actually packing the books in the boxes and shipping them out.
Right.
That was actually before I even got sober, but that's a whole other story. But it's, you know, the materials that I've picked up along the way and things that I've learned, because I used to volunteer at Hazelden. I actually went to treatment there twice.
Yeah.
Because my insurance covered it. It was a crazy thing. But the idea is they give you the information and then you're supposed to use it. You're supposed to use it with, you know, your sponsor or, you know, whoever.
Right.
But a lot of times they do stuff, people that are sponsors or that, you know, been in recovery for a long time that need some tune-ups.
Those things are meant to enhance your recovery.
Right.
They're not your recovery,
Yeah.
but they're meant to enhance it. Yeah. That's good stuff.
And, you know, and meetings and stuff we were talking about, you know, places like Hazelden, at least where I was at, they have what they call Second Sunday. You can go for, used to be $10 and get a meal and
nice,
listen to some speakers and then do some breakout groups.
What a deal.
Yeah, it was good. You know, I'm sure it's, you know, probably gone up to 20, but if you have an opportunity to do those kind of things, do them, you know.
The more the better.
The more the better.
Yeah.
The more you can like learn about yourself and about making some changes, because there's a lot of things that, I mean, when I got into recovery, it's like I scared the crap out of me because I don't know how to live life. I didn't know how to live life without some kind of chemicals in my system, legal or illegal.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
now it's, you got all these energy drinks that, that are getting more and more caffeine. I saw some ad in coffee, right? I saw some ad for this new coffee that's got like 600 milligrams of caffeine per cup. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That'll stop your heart, man.
Yeah. You might as it's like, really, what do you really, you're like that one step before going back to the meth.
So I was sitting and Dave, my friend Dave B, if he's listening to the show, he'll get a kick out of this. He was sitting next to me. This is when Rockstar was really hitting it big time.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody in the meetings was showing up with rock stars, or there's another one called Jokers. That was my favorite, was Jokers. And these things were just loaded with horrible stuff for you,
right.
That was camouflaged as healthy stuff, but it was such intense amounts of it that it was so bad. And so here, we're bringing 2 or 3 cans, the large ones, and we're sucking these things down.
Right.
And Dave writes on his matchbook, he writes me a note. And this is in a 12-step meeting, and he writes me a note and he slides it over to me, and I open it up and it says, "Are we drinking for the effect?" And I was like, wow, I am so busted. He was right, because I wasn't drinking. There was no moderation involved at all here.
Right.
It was behavior that it was old that had become current, and I really had to check myself.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things that we have to think about when we get into recovery, because I know I traded. You want to trade it one addiction for another, because once I got sober, now I'm drinking. I remember for a while there I was going to Starbucks.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was stopping at Starbucks on the way to work and buying, the large, whatever, with a couple extra shots.
The extra grande.
Right. The mocha with, a couple extra shots to it. It's like, and then I got into Hot Wheels, right? And so I learned, there was a guy at work who taught me about all the special Hot Wheels to look for, and what stores got their shipments when. And so then I got into this whole thing with this obsession with Hot Wheels for a while. And I had to stop and think. It's like, I'm spending, I'm spending just as much or more on this stuff than I was on alcohol. So I'm just trading one for the other. So, but these are the things we learn in recovery. We have to, and if we're working the steps and we're talking with a sponsor and we're actually going to meetings. And I went to meetings almost every day. I went to meetings every day for just short of 2 years.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years. And so that was, it helped me, like, not only share my experience, strength, and hope, but also learn stuff from other people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And found out that, going to certain meetings, I was getting fed what I needed to get fed. That was missing the emotional sobriety. You go to a meeting and someone gives you a hug, or you get a chip, and you got, we used to have this meeting where people would come up, and more than one person would come up and like say something like, "Hey, you helped me out when you said this a couple weeks ago," and it like changed, whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember, a couple times along the way, early on, I got 8 people lined up to say something. I'm like, this is crazy.
Wow.
Or someone, you go to a meeting and you walk in and someone gives you a hug and says, I'm glad to see you. It's like, this is what I've been missing in my life, right? Because we all need that someone to say, "Hey, I appreciate you. I'm glad you're here. You're doing a good job," right?
Yeah.
If employers would do that more, I think people would be happier in their job. And
that means more than a raise.
Exactly.
I am telling you, or a pen with a diamond in it, or whatever. That affirmation, I really appreciate your dedication to this job. You are really bringing valuable content to this place.
Right.
That stuff, people will ride that for days.
Yeah.
But we don't do that. We're picking out the bad. We're picking out the, you did this wrong.
We have to be the change, as they say, we have to be the change we want to see in the world.
Yeah.
So we have to do that part. And so that was another thing, is like, I have to, when I'm around people, or when the things that help me out, I have to give that same thing back. You know, I have to go give someone a hug when there's a guy that, that crashed into his house, across the street from me, and the next day we were talking, and I gave him a hug, and we got this, everybody's worried about this whole virus thing.
Right.
I'm like, that I don't care. This is, someone needs to know that, it's okay.
That someone gives a
It's
rip.
okay if you mess up, as long as you get back on track and fix it. And those are the things that we need to do, is when we see somebody in pain or see somebody needs help, we need to be that person that helps them out, not sit there and go, that somebody should help them out.
Right.
Right.
Or I remember when I had my first beer, and then just drive off,
Sucks for you.
Well, you're talking about what we talk about, like in Alcoholics Anonymous, it talks about being the hands and feet, right, to those who still suffer. If we're just take all the time, and I hear it all the time in meetings, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
I hear this, well, I'm here for me. I'm here for me. This is my program. I'm here for me. Well, I get that in early recovery, but this is coming from people that have been going to meetings for decades.
And that's part of the problem, I think, no offense, but we have to get outside of ourselves.
We do.
And that was part of my issue. And another part of this is like, okay, I'm okay with isolation, right?
Okay.
I'm okay with being with me.
Right.
I'm okay with just hanging out with my dog and my wife.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We joked about this whole quarantine thing. Is like me and my wife were saying, this is like the Olympics, right? We've been practicing this our whole lives. But that was part of my recovery too, is I had to, no matter how much I didn't want to do something, I had to go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And because I did that for 2 years, the first 2 years, it's like, it helped me, to this day, and it's been, over 15 years. It's like, there was days when I was like, I don't want to go to a meeting. I just worked 10 hours, or I just worked 12 hours.
Right.
And, I'm tired. I just want to go home. And I've just gone anyway. I mean, there was days where I'm literally like 10 minutes late for a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I turn left, I go home. If I go straight, I go to the meeting, and I'm just like, what should I do? I really don't want to go into the meeting late. And I go to I pull up to the stoplight, and the meeting list slides out of my visor with that meeting highlighted, right? And I'm like, crap.
There you go.
Yeah, and so I go to the meeting, and I walk in 15 minutes late, and it's like, but it was like I needed to be there, or someone else needed to hear what I shared that day.
Sure.
That's kind of how I looked at it, as like, being in recovery, you're valuable. You have something to give back, even if we don't think we do, or we don't think we don't think we have the right to, or we don't think we have anything valuable to say, or we should just sit and be quiet because we were a piece of crap in our life or whatever. It's like, no, you're still valuable, right? Just because you've done some things in your life doesn't mean you're not on the right track, or you have something to share. And that's basically, if someone needs a hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I need a ride, or I need somebody to open for the meeting, or chair the meeting, right? And so doing that and showing up, I don't know how many times I've gone and chaired meetings, and I'm the only one there, right? No one shows up.
Yeah.
And one time we
got about 3 minutes left, so
okay. Anyway,
can you do it?
So you just show up. So 3 minutes. The other thing that I think is super important, and if anybody's interested in learning more, they can could send in a request. But when we get back to work, or we get back on our feet, it's like, what does that look like? Sometimes we got to reevaluate what we're doing, right? There's times where we just need to take a job at McDonald's, as a recovery job to start out, to start getting back into the swing of things. But there's a point where you need to sit down and look at, like, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? And then start working that process to, find something that fits that bill. Because I don't know how many times there's been people that have gone back to their old job, and it's like, they're still miserable. This job sucks. Nobody appreciates me, and maybe you messed up a lot where you're there, and so everyone's kind of irritated at you. Maybe it's time to move on. Or if it's a job you don't really like, it doesn't matter. Just because it pays all right or pays the bills.
Yeah.
But you're miserable, and you're just you come home and you're irritating your wife or whatever.
Yeah.
It's time to start looking at that, and I think that's a super important thing, is like look at am I happy in what I'm doing? Do I want to be doing something else? And if you do, go do it. Because if you're miserable, you're not going to do things.
You're going to come home miserable,
and you're going
to spread misery.
What's the point?
Right.
It's going to,
yeah.
If you hang out with like negative people and negative situations, you're going to become negative. And so we don't want to do that. We want to, get our integrity. We want to do something positive. And so, and working with a sponsor and going to meetings and, learning about yourself, doing the step work.
So we're going to go, let's ask the audience what they think. Do you guys want to extend the show a few minutes? Yeah, they said yes. Okay, we're going to extend it a few minutes. See the power that's there?
Right.
See what we can do, because I do want to talk about something else in this too. So continue, because this is important stuff. And I know a lot of you have heard this stuff before, and you keep hearing it. There may be a reason why you keep hearing it.
Right. That's another topic too, right? We talk about, like, if you go to meetings and, especially if you're going to meetings every day and you hear the same topic,
there may be a good reason
up
for that, right?
There's probably a reason, and it's something that you need to look at in your own life.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's not actually what the topic is of the group, but it's the thing that you're hearing people talk about.
Yeah.
That also resonates in you.
Yeah.
So the idea is to go out and do things that are positive. And another part of that too is when we talk about the only thing you have to change is everything. A big part of that is, we talked at the beginning about unplugging. If
blow up the TV.
I mean, for me, I know watching movies and things like that is a way for me to unplug and decompress.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I utilize my my Netflix subscription. I don't have them anymore, but early in recovery, it's like I went in there and looked up everything that was like, family friendly, recovery oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Even some things that were like, you watch people like fall apart. It's about addiction,
right?
In recovery, and some of them weren't. They were more about crashing and burning. But it was, the idea is like I changed the movies that I watched. I changed the music I listened to.
Mm-hmm.
I found a whole new world of positive, rock and roll, hard rock, and there's a lot of Christian rock out there that didn't know existed.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive influences in media. We complain a lot about the negative, right? But that's because we're so focused on it. But there's tons of positive.
And that's the other big, there's lots of big parts. You got your list, but changing what you're feeding your spirit.
Yeah.
Right. If you're feeding your spirit, and it goes along the same thing with relationships. If you're with a person that is tearing you down, or it's all about them, right? Because sometimes we feel like we got to fix things. Like I wrecked everything, and so now I'm responsible. I have to fix it. Well, you can't fix everything in a day.
Right.
And the biggest change that you need to make is in yourself, right? You need to, because you can't help anybody else unless you help yourself. And so you have to work on yourself first.
Yep.
I mean, me and my wife, we split up for a while. At first it was, if everybody else would change,
you'd be okay.
Or if everybody else would do things my way, or they'd be fine. That was before I actually got, got really into recovery. But I had to work on myself. That took that to figure out that it isn't about everyone else. It's about me.
Yeah.
And once I started working on myself and fixing what I needed to fix in my life and doing the things, changing the negatives into positives, I was able to get stronger and feeling confident in my, feeling good in my own skin. It was a number of years. We got back together, and I knew at that point that I expected some pushback because the only thing my wife remembered was the negative stuff.
Sure.
Right. And so she expected me to be the same way that I was before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, there were days.
Yeah, I bet.
There were days,
I bet.
Where I just wanted to toss her out the window, but I didn't. I went for a walk, and then I called my sponsor, and I went to a meeting. And I learned, it's like, why am I so upset?
Mm-hmm.
It's like she's just reacting to the old being. And so I just got to keep pushing forward the integrity, keep doing the next right thing, and we, our relationship now is better than it ever has been.
Yeah.
And it took some work. We've been together this year. It's 30 years we've been together.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, minus a few years to, work on myself, but
it took work, and
and
this is what we're saying. You can't rest on your laurels. You can't just sit back and absorb, all this stuff and expect not to relapse.
Your life isn't going to change by osmosis.
No, it's not. So we are. I do need to wrap it up, but
okay.
I want to close out with this because so I was talking to one of the guys where I work in the recovery center that I work at. And he was sharing with me that, that he'll go for a year and a half or 2 years and then he'll relapse. And I said, so what is I said, what are the things that you're doing for your recovery? He named all these things, right? And I said, so what is missing?
What is he doing outside of the program though?
Right. But the thing is, outside of the program he's in now, he wasn't doing anything.
Right.
He was being a good dad, quote unquote. He was doing all the stuff that the world expects him to do, but he was, unbeknownst to him, he was white knuckling his sobriety.
Right.
And so he said, well, I go to Celebrate Recovery. And I said, do you go to Celebrate Recovery or do you simply attend? He goes, well, I don't go to the small groups afterwards. I just go to the praise and worship and that. And I went, oh. So
he's just basically going to church.
You don't go to the meat and potatoes. You just eat a little bit of ice cream beforehand and then you take off. Well, I don't like groups like that. Oh, okay. So what about other groups? I said, he goes, well, I just don't like that. I said, so how'd that work for you? Where'd you end up?
Yeah.
You ended up back here again. And he laughed and I said, hey brother, it's not funny because next time it could be your life because you're uncomfortable getting real, right? So
it goes back to what I was talking about you're not letting people know who you really are.
Exactly.
Because you're afraid that somebody's going to use it against you.
Or they're going to run away.
I know some of our Christian friends that aren't going to like this, but sometimes going to Celebrate Recovery is a cop-out. Because if I'm using 24/7, I got to trade that off for recovery. So I need to do something every day for my recovery. And that's why I would go into meetings. So just because the AA meeting, talks about higher power, they don't say God or whatever. It's like, it doesn't matter.
No, you fill in the blank.
You're there to learn how to recover. You're there to learn how to change your life. And in turn, you're going to help somebody else. It doesn't matter what the letters are in front of the meeting. It's the meat and potatoes, right?
Yep.
You need to get in there and do the work.
I'm so glad you said that.
You can sit there in your brain and go, okay, I don't agree with this, but I'm still, I can switch that around into what works for me. We go to meetings and we say we take what we need and leave the rest behind. There's lots of meetings I've been to where I don't agree with a lot of the things, but It doesn't matter.
But
I'm
if
not
that's
there
your
for
focus,
that.
you're not going to get the
Right.
stuff that you really do need.
If I want to change
know?
something in a meeting, then I go be a part of the leadership, and I go and I
Right.
try to change things.
When I go to a restaurant, I don't order everything that's on the menu. You know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
I
or
don't-
go to the kitchen and say, "Hey, you should prepare this differently."
No, and so yeah, I mean, so it is. It's about how free do you want to be. So you can find this. I'm going to close out with this. You can find this. I was like, who wrote this? I was trying to think who wrote this, and I put on the website anonymous because I couldn't remember who wrote it, and then I was reminded that I actually wrote it. I'm losing my mind.
Losing?
Yeah. So some time ago I put this together, but I really believe this to be true. There are 3 types of 12-step community members, and you can find this on the website at take12radio.com. You can click on the little PDF thing, and you can print it out if you'd like. But listen to me close, because this speaks to what we're talking about. You want to prevent relapse. You want to do more than just be abstinent, but live a productive life and be of maximum service to God and the people he puts in your life. Listen to this. All right, so there's 3 types, in my opinion. Type number 1, the spectator. They walk into the rooms, the 12-step rooms, recovery rooms, chewed up and spit out. They've experienced some sort of painful experience or thought process that has triggered a desire to change their circumstances. If they could just get a glimpse of what once was, all would be well. If only their life struggles would turn around and benefit them, they would be a better person. After all, isn't it everyone else's fault that they made the choices they did? Then in a fleeting moment of clarity, they admit that they are powerless and concede that their troubles are of their own making. They attend meeting after meeting, believing if they listen to what is being shared day in and day out, they will be just fine. They may have even been told that meeting attendance will keep them sober. Though their intentions are good, they seldom move forward in their lives, and at best experience short terms of sobriety, always followed by relapse. These are the spectators of the 12-step community who continue to make resolutions but never affirm commitment to the process set before them. They come in, they go out, and if they don't physically die, they rot from within. Type number 2. The participator. The participator walks into the rooms, chewed up and spit out. They've experienced some sort of painful experience or thought process that has triggered a desire to change their circumstances. They are energetic and ready to give all they can for the cause of service. After all, they have been told that if they would simply step up to the plate and put everyone else before themselves, all will be well. They may even have been told that service work will keep them sober. These are the participators of the 12-step community. They volunteer for everything and have been instructed never to decline an opportunity to be of service. Though they claim to believe in the literature and the instructions within the fellowship, few of them overzealous folks ever truly do more than talk about short paragraphs within the pages of the book they have never really read, let alone studied. Though their intentions are good, they seldom move from head knowledge to heart application. Then the day comes when they are so burned out on service work, they default to relapse. They may return to the rooms only to repeat the same behavior. If they don't physically die, they rot from within. And type number 3, the convinced. The convinced walks into the rooms, chewed up and spit out. They have experienced some sort of painful experience or thought process that has triggered a desire to change the way they think. They have the desperation that only a drowning person can have. They are willing to take instruction, and when given clear direction, they take it. They do not hesitate. They meet with a sponsor or spiritual advisor, perhaps several times a week. They study the literature and follow the program set forth in its pages, as if their very life depends upon it, because it does. If they should experience a relapse, they immediately continue the recovery process and don't waste time making excuses. They own their mistakes and continue to grow on a daily basis. They are firmly grounded in the basic text of their fellowship. They grow from being meeting and service dependent to being fully dependent upon their Creator. They have recognized that the steps they took to reach a state of recovery were but tools that showed their need for a power that could do for themselves what no human power could ever do. They are restored to sanity, and as a result, their obsession to use mind-altering substances or vices of any kind is lifted. They have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Because their intentions are to pass on the gift that was given to them, they continue to attend meetings, work with others, and keep close vigil on their own humanism. They do not do these things in order to stay sober. They work with others because they comprehend the truth that they are to be about the business of being of maximum service to God and their fellows. They continue to grow in their understanding of God as they enjoy the freedom that only He can grant. They have experienced a new freedom and a new way of living. These are the convinced of the 12-step community. They are convinced that any life run on self-knowledge and not on a full and complete dependence upon God will never experience true freedom. The convinced have been restored to much more than sobriety. They have been restored to sanity. And may I just say that the convinced are the ones that continually practice some of these points that Dave was mentioning. Going to multiple meetings, even after you've been in the program for a while, going on these road trips where you go with friends to different meetings, being involved in service work, exchanging drug time for recovery time, working those steps, practicing integrity, working with a sponsor, and giving back what's been given to them. They do all of that, right, Dave?
Right.
They do all of it, not just one or two, and become dependent on those one or two.
Right. And you learn, you have to make adjustments. There's a couple things I just want to touch on real quick here. If you're going to one meeting a week and your hours change at work and you can't go to that meeting, then what do you do?
Right.
That's why you have to keep an open mind. You have to go and check out various meetings so that if you need to change your schedule, you
got to be able to balance that scale. Right.
And if you're, you're working a program, like what I was describing or similar, you will see how God works in your life, because we talk a lot about being dependent on God, but there's a lot of people that struggle with that out there. What does that look like? So do I sit back and I go, okay, God, send me a job?
Yeah, they'll let go and let God and do
some
nothing.
Money.
Yeah, right.
It's like, no, I actually have to do something, and then God will help me get to where I need to go.
Absolutely.
If I'm paying attention and doing the next right thing.
Yeah.
You
can't sit on your laurels and just expect. God will not render us white as snow without our cooperation.
Right. And we have to and through the process of recovery, even though we try to do things our own way, after years, God will come in there and set you straight if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
I thought one time, if I just, play the lottery, right?
Yeah.
And I use, a process.
Right.
That's all I want to say. I can win. I use positive self-talk and use even principles that they talk about in church. It's like, act as if, you already are there and have this. Right. And, God said, okay, we're going to lay you off. Right. Because I was thinking I would like to go back to school.
Right.
And still have money to support my family.
Right.
So now I have time to go to school and I have an income from unemployment.
Wow.
This was back in 2007.
Right.
And that started that process of going to school.
Right.
Well, my best thinking at the time just wasn't right, but I knew when that happened that this is God's way of answering my prayer, just not in the way that had planned. Right.
Yeah.
He likes to laugh at my plans.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how he works like that.
But yeah, I just, do the work, get out there and don't overthink it.
Just follow the instructions.
Just show up, suit up and be of service. And that's how you start the process. And then as you go through, you will learn more about yourself. You'll figure this out. And if you don't, then you gotta, you look at what you need to work on. Go back and replay this episode and and think through the process. It's like, no, there's something missing.
And if some of these points that we pointed out and that Dave talked about, if some of them are distasteful to you, well, buck up, Buttercup. Maybe you need to try. I mean, well, I don't like doing that. Oh, well, do you like living on the street with a needle in your arm? Is that what you like?
It's the old, let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah. It's amazing to me, people that will come in broken and absolutely appearing to be full of an attitude of surrender, and then they start feeling a little better, and all of a sudden they're these recovery gurus that know all the answers, and then they're back out there using again.
And even after years of being you don't figure stuff doesn't really go away entirely. Like, I think about using. I listen to people talking about their recovery or their relapse, and there's times where I think, oh, I wonder if I could do that, right? And then I process it. Yeah, but if I did, then
you're able to process
this would
it
happen.
Now. You're able to keep it green now,
right?
Because of what you did then,
right?
You can't do that in early recovery, so you've got to follow the instructions that people lay before you.
And that's the people think, oh, you must not have any problems anymore. It's like, no, I got all kinds of issues, but I can work through them.
We approach them differently.
I have a solution now.
Amen.
And I think positive, and I try to keep positive people around me.
Well, one of the biggest things we really promote, and you talked about it, give back what's been given to you. Exactly. Our closing song is simply called "Reach Out" by recovery recording artist Hillary Roberts, a beautiful lady with beautiful music that really tells it all as far as one of the greatest tools to prevent relapse. Get out of yourself and reach out to somebody who is less fortunate. Here's Hillary.
She wakes up every morning, going through the same routine, coffee and her nicotine. In her eyes there's a story, a broken home that she's been through, left alone for someone new. And she's in need of a hand that won't let go, a love that she can see. And you can be the beginning of a change. All she wants is to believe. Reach out, show her there's a lot of love to go around. Yeah. Reach out, you can make a difference here and now. Oh, if you just reach out. He stands up in the mirror, going out to hit the scene, grabs his coat and takes his keys. In his heart there's a fear, he won't deny the drink again. Bottles got a hold of him. He's in need of a hand that won't let go, a love that he can't see. You can be the beginning of a change. All he wants is to believe. Reach out, show him there's a lot of love to go around. Yeah. Reach out, you can make a difference here and now. Oh, if you just reach out. 'Cause they're in need of a hand that won't let go, a love that they can see. And we can be the beginning of a change. All they want is to believe. Reach out, show them there's a lot of love to go around. Yeah. Oh, reach out, you can make a
recovery music of Hillary Roberts. For more of her great recovery music, visit her website at hillaryroberts.com. All right, until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man along with Dave Fleming, reminding you, because of God's incredible grace and favor, you are entitled to overcome.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.